In this tutorial, we will explore various functions under grids and blocks. We shall continue working from the previous model developed for Trisco Colors tutorial. As we have seen previously, each grid in the y-axis represents each layer in the stratigraphy of the wall cross-section. At block window, let's consider the fourth block with color 170 representing exterior boundary condition. The defined y-axis limits are from 0 to 1. If we change y-max limit from 1 to 2, the blocks are arranged by default in the principle of superposition, with blocks at the bottom having higher priority than blocks on top of it. In case of overlapping domains, a block with higher priority supersedes lower priority blocks. Hence we notice that the fourth block superseded and eliminates the first block which was existing defined in the y-grid 1 to 2. If you wish to change the priority, you must move the block on top. To do this, first, select the block you want to move. To select the block, click on the select icon on the toolbar at the top. You can click on the same icon to deselect the block. An easier way would be to directly click on the index number of the block to select it. Now, if we want to move this block below the first block, click on the first block, choose Move Selection after and notice the block has moved on top below the first block. If you change the y-max limit now to 4 for example, you will still see the third and fourth block which are below because they are higher priority than the external environment layer. For the first block with color 136 to be visible, we will select and move it below the second block. Select the first block, and then click on second block and then choose Move Selection after. You can hold Ctrl and click on blocks to select multiple blocks and perform similar operation performed before to move on top or bottom. If you select by holding Shift, you will select all blocks in between in selection. You can deselect entire selection by clicking Deselect All icon. Lastly, you can also select all blocks on top or bottom of your selection by choosing Switch Selection upwards or Switch Selection downwards. We now will create a metal strip in between the insulation layer. We select all the layers at X-axis holding Shift, and at the Grids menu, choose Merge. Once you make changes to the grid, the Blocks window automatically adjusts the existing geometry to the current grid. We will redivide the X-axis grid to accommodate the metal strip. At Grid menu, choose Split. There are various options, we shall explore each of these now. First, the geometric method asks you how many segments you want the grid to split and what's the ratio. If we wanted to split in 3 segments and of ratio is 1, we split equally. You now can see that we got 3 equally split segments. We will undo this step with Ctrl+Z to see other split options. We again choose Split from the Grid menu, if we choose Maximum. The grid will split at every interval of the input distance, say 5 cm. You can notice the grid is split into fractions of 5 cm and the last grid with the remaining width. We undo the step and choose Split again, using the shortcut Ctrl+I. At Split window Border 1, Border 2, and Border 1 and 2 define cutting plane at the specified distance and split the grid. Border 1 and 2 are the opposite ends of the grid. Suppose the thickness of the metal strip is 1 cm. We choose Border 1 and 2 and input the distance from the border as 17 so that out of 35 cm, 17 cm is left from both ends and the remaining 1 cm is left in the center. Now we achieve the desired grid. We will create a new block, by defining X limits from 1 to 2, Y limits from 2 to 3. We input the color as 13 for steel. We have prepared the model to analyze linear thermal bridge. We now have a simple grid just enough to model the geometry. Whereas to perform analysis, we need to split the grid further to create a much more refined mesh. For this at the Grids window, we choose Auto Split. In our example, we need to split the grid in XY plane which is along the direction of heat flow. For smaller meshes up to 5 cm, The mesh would equally divide into segments of 1 cm each. If the grid is larger than 5 cm, then the split distance keeps increasing in the ratio of 1.5 beginning from the edge where there is a change of material. We can better visualize this after we split. We now see the grid split and ready for analysis. Here you notice that spacing keeps increasing in the ratio 1.5 as it goes farther from the material boundary. Now you can click on Calculate System icon to run the analysis and visualize the result. Once you split or modify the grid, the block window would automatically update its values to be coherent with the modified grid. If you wish to return to a simpler grid to make changes in the geometry or to further model geometry, at the Grids menu choose Create Minimum Grid. Now to change the units of the grid, at the Grids menu choose Grid Unit. Now the grid unit is 0.01 meters as by default it was in centimeter. If we want to change this into millimeters, enter 0.001 meters. Then Trisco asks you if you wanted to scale the object to match with the new units. To move, scale or rate a block, at the Block menu, choose Transform Coordinates. Under Transform, if we want to move the selected block in x-axis, say 100 millimeters. Upon clicking OK, we see that the block has been displaced. Similarly, you can also scale or rotate using Transform Coordinates. Currently, the grid window has the relative distances displayed between grid. If you wanted to see the absolute value, then, at Edit menu, choose Coordinates and notice the change in Grids window. If we want to set back to previous relative values, then at Edit menu choose Grid. Thank you for watching, see you at the next video.